Hey, what a dip, y'all. Let's get right into it. Pathfinder 2 0.2 update was just announced yesterday, right? The Dawn of the Hunt updated the reveal stream for it. And I just want to take a quick moment to actually talk about the announcement. And I got to go over literally everything they talked about. It was a 3-hour long stream if you include the Q&A. Absolutely jam-packed full of information. And instead, what I've done for you guys here is condensed it down into the things that I think are extremely important to know and the things that have at least got me the most excited. So I'm hoping that this will be the things that get you the most excited as well, including things for, people who are just looking for new experiences in the game or new things to experience in the game. You'll understand what I mean by that later. It's kind of what the goal of this video is. Also, you can get more of these opinions, if you want all of my thoughts live over on my stream. Actually watch the announcement over there when it happened. It's all good fun and good vibes. Check that link out in the description. Also, like, comment, subscribe if you want with the video. Let's get into it. There's a lot to cover, right? Like I said, it was a 3-hour stream, and I'm trying to break it down to be as quick as possible. Let's get it. So, first thing, obviously most important, it's called the Dawn of the Hunt for a reason. The Huntress is getting added. The Huntress, alongside her new weapon type, the Spears, which look like they're a moderately nimble to very nimble weapon type that is somehow even more so combo focused than quarterstaves looked like they were. So it'll be interesting to see, like, A, how important those are, but also can we actually break the sequences so we can, like, smooth out the gameplay. Same thing with, like, how quarterstaves were supposed to be combo focused, and then we eventually figured out how to just, like, make it smooth, comfortable ARPG gameplay. I wonder if we're gonna be able to do the same thing with Spears, because those skills look sick, and I'm excited to play around with them a little bit. As far as the Ascendencies for the Huntress goes, we have the Ritualist and the Amazon. Starting with the Ritualist, it is, described as the dark magic type of Huntress, very sacrifice themed, both in terms of sacrificing the beasts that you find, but also sacrificing things about yourself, whether it be giving up some of your stats or consuming your life or mana for effects, including this one really ridiculous node pending some tuning that we know is coming. Unfurled Finger getting a ring slot in exchange for, honestly, some irrelevant amounts of stats in any one of the 3 categories. It seems a little ridiculous to me, but again, we'll see, especially, ingenuity being ingenuity, right? We'll have to see if it gets changed there, but it does look really good. Amazon, on the other hand, is a more of the direct, like, hunting interpretation of Huntress, and it comes with a couple of effects that I think are honestly not that strong in isolation, but I'm interested to see, like, if there's, new uniques or what the skills themselves say on them to really, like, support these playstyles, because the elemental weapon abuse don't sound great, at least until I can actually really, like, see more about the data for these skills, because the stuff that I have in the media kit is not super useful for that. I'll have it show up on the screen though, so you can see that. The accuracy stack itself looks kind of cool with nothing else, like a ceiling scaler. And there's interesting recovery stuff, including, like, elemental damage leech, which is very annoying to see as an ascendancy feature. But it's not surprising considering chaos was also treated as an ascendancy feature. It's just, stop making leech hard to come by. Recovery needs to feel good. Good recovery feels good. You know what I mean? Other than the Huntress and her ascendancies, we're also getting 3 more ascendancies, just like 3 of the classes. The Witch, the Warrior, and the Merc are getting their 3rd ascendancies here. Starting with the Witch, we have the Lich. Uh, did not mean to rhyme there. If you like that, the Lich is being added, and it is, honestly, if you play PLE1, it very much reminds me of Occultist. It's got the curse scaling, it's got the power charge scaling, it's got a really interesting set of minion nodes, as well as this soulless form and eternal life combo that they've got going on there, which I've seen some pretty cool stuff with it. We were talking about it in my stream chat, actually, about some cool ways that this could be used. We'll have to see if this persists and lasts until it actually launches, but you can see some really tanky characters coming out of the setup. And then on top of all this, Crystalline Phylactery just being like a kind of build an ascendancy node is a really cool feature. So it'll be really cool to see how that pans out, especially with, like, remember, this affects, like, enchants from voling the jewels as well. That's going to be really, really potent. Smith the Katava is a warrior ascendancy that's built around, like, kind of like, it is a smith, like a blacksmith. Don't really know why they chose to make it themed Katava themed outside of, like, the fire, which is because for whatever reason, I don't think of fire when I think of Katava. I think more like demon, more like possession, or like bloodthirst. But with the theming going on here, if you're familiar with PoE1's Chieftain, we borrowed the Chieftain fire resistance nuts for this Ascendancy. There's some cool stuff involving imbuing your weapon or animating your weapon even, which who knows if that's going to be useful. But the real highlight of Smith of the Katava is the smithing part, the smith a body armor, right? Where you just use any amount of passive points to build a body armor instead of the chest piece that you're actually wearing. I suspect that this will be extremely strong earlier on. No idea if this will have the staying power beyond early game, but it is really cool nonetheless. Just love the concept, right? And then our last ascendancy, which I do not like the concept of. Tactician looks like it's a support ascendancy. Not really sure though. But I think it's supposed to be a support ascendancy or like a totem ascendancy. I really don't know. I read over these things and I could not figure out what it's supposed to like actually do. So if somebody comes up with an idea for that, let me know. Because the supporting fire skill looked kind of cool, but it didn't look like it did much damage. And I can't tell if it's just because it wasn't scaled properly. Like it just, I don't know. They didn't do this one justice. I feel like they could have done better, like selling me on the idea behind the tactician. You know what I'm saying? Now, what's going to sound crazy is that I just spent a couple minutes talking about the Ascendancies, and you would think that that's like the biggest thing in here. And for me personally, that is the least important thing in this entire announcement stream. Like I said, I listened to 3 hours of the stream, and the parts that bored me the most were when they were talking about the classes during the reveal, and then when they spent like 45 minutes talking about it in the Q&A. Both times I was like, oh my God, please get to the meat and potatoes, because the meat and potatoes for a player like me, at least, is everything else, right? I said earlier, whether you want to new experiences in the game or new ways to experience the game, right? The ascendancies and the classes and whatnot, they fall under the ways to experience the game, ways to play the game. But I'm looking for the things in the game to do. And so getting changes to that part of the game is what I actually care about. And this first thing in this list of a couple more things to talk about, it really like opens the door, which is that they are finally undoing the one portal per map restriction, or rather they're changing how it's implemented, right? The current implementation, Mark addressed it directly in his part of the showcase where he says how the campaign and the mapping experience are so starkly different, where you are in the campaign and you get wrecked by something, but you respawn in the zone so you can figure out how to do it again, right? Like for me, it was that stupid silverback in Act 3 just rolled me over and I was like, oh no. Took me a couple tries, right? But that's an experience that you're supposed to have. And then you get to maps, and all of a sudden, you're not allowed to trial and error anymore. Everything is one and done, and it's a very stark disconnect in how the game is played. And so, with this update, we're getting a change to that waystones will have multiple portals based on the amount of modifiers on them, which well-juiced waystones will in fact still only give you one portal. Now, the exact implementation of this is not fully known because they said that they're still working out some stuff regarding like say like party play and how that's going to go. But the general idea of the fact that we'll be able to actually attempt a map again, like go back into the map after dying once to some absolute nonsense is fantastic. Oh my God. Like, I'm so glad they heard the feedback. I'm so glad that they actually are willing to bend a little bit on this topic, because I was worried that this was going to be a hill that they permanently died on, and it was going to really hurt a lot of my willingness to like continue exploring the game. And I feel like a lot of people share this sentiment, especially people that even like I'm like close with. Like this is a very common sentiment. So I'm glad they bent on this. Now, related to this though, they also talked about in the Q&A part of this, it wasn't in the reveal, it was in the Q&A, where they talked about how they also want to make some stuff affect map sustain, alongside the fact that realistically you'll just be dying and breaking your maps less often because you'll actually be able to die and go back into the map. But in addition to that, they're making it so that you don't drop waystones below the tier of the waystone that you're currently running. So you'll be dropping maps that do sustain you should you have put enough quant on your map. And then you'll have additional chances to make sure you actually do get that sustain. And then you'll just progress upwards through map bossing, which I think is actually really system. I wish they would have done this in PoE1. Honestly, I've said it for a long time that lower tier map drops just don't, not that they don't have a place, but that they are extremely infuriating, if nothing else, to like filter through and then like fight through to try to actually sustain your maps. So glad to see that this is the change that they're willing to make here, because map tiers are not a relevant part of progression in the same way that they were in PoE1. Huge improvement in this regard. Next up on the list is a bunch of stuff regarding just new and or updated endgame content, which when I was writing this section in my notes, I thought it was going to be short. It's not. There's a lot that they're adding, right? Because I mean, they said it themselves in the stream. You know, one of the biggest things that they knew they needed to have in this update was just more content. If there was anything that PoE 2 was lacking, it was just things to do in the end game. And so here we are, right? Starting off with literally the mechanic of this update, the Asmiri Wisp, which if you played PoE 1 and you're familiar with Affliction League, it's a version of that. It's not the same thing, but it definitely was the first thing we thought of. We were like some mix of Affliction and Torment. You find a Wisp, you follow it around, it haunts or hunts different enemies to improve their rewards, which will reward these things called talismans, which are much like the soul cores, just a special category of socketables with new unique effects. They seem to only have effects in one specific slot, though. The examples they showed said things like specifically in a glove, get rage on hit. So take note of that, right? Then we also have a bunch of new unique maps, which they showed 3 of them so far. No, I don't remember how many they said there were going to actually be. We have the Rune map. I don't remember that. They didn't give us the name of this one, but it was like a rune map that kind of felt like almost like Calgur themed, but it gives us greater runes. There's one that actually is the Fractured Lake from Kalandra League. That is going to have mirrored rares in it, which is kind of cool, as well as the ability to drop these special bases at the end that are very reminiscent of heist bases if you played PoE 1, in the sense that they are bases that sacrifice a modifier or modifiers for other modifiers. So, for example, -1 prefix +1 suffix. Right, so that'll be pretty cool to see there. And the third one they showed is this Giga Essence map called Silent Lake, where you go around this lake and you can free as many of the rare essences as you want, and they will turn into greater essences and infuse into the big boss in the middle, which then, you know, you can fight the big boss to get your greater essences. And there's some other stuff related to essences, but we'll talk about that later. But that was also a pretty cool map, and also it's a source of greater essences, thank the Lord, right? Next up on the list, Rogue Exiles, added to the game this patch as well. They are going to be dropping the gear that they wear. There's a bunch of other stuff to talk about. The main thing is that they drop the gear they are actively wearing. Like, they are built characters that you will fight and kill and take their loot. Now, when you die to them, they leave. So you only get that one life to kill them. Like, you can still come back into the map if your map has additional portals, but they will not be there. They will have dipped because they won their fight. But if you kill them, they will drop their gear, including the unique that they're wearing, any uniques they're wearing, which will be in the modifier list. So, you know, if they have a good unique, you know, lock in, right? Also, apparently they have some cool dialogue, so that might be funny to see. You know, look forward to hearing those. We have unique strong boxes being added, which I'm not adding any detail here. It's just noting that they're coming. Then there's also the update to corruption. The corruption, it's not like corruption as in like Vol Orbs, but corruption as in the like map node type. Those are now getting monster and modifier updates, as well as being integrated into the progression system of the game. This is a huge thing that was talked about in how you got to maps, and the game was just kind of like, ugh, go explore, my child. Go do whatever, right? Go kill these maps, I guess. Go crazy. Like, it didn't actually point you anywhere like the one in PoE 1 does. And so now it is going to be you going to these special corruption areas called corruption nexuses for Doriani to be able to clear the corruption from these areas. And that's how you will get your passive points. Huge, fantastic change. I'm just glad they're giving, again, a little bit more direction for how to play the game. Even though I personally need the direction, I think it's just good design if we're trying to make sure that the game is onboardable, that people have direction on how they should be getting through the progression in the game, right? And once you do this, you're going to unlock what is called a cleanse map set, which just kind of replaces all the corrupted maps with cleansed maps. And these have other special monsters and modifiers, one of which includes the return of fracturing orbs as drops, which, again, we'll talk about that later. I have a whole section dedicated to crafting stuff, but ooh, baby, that's exciting, right? Next up on the list, towers and tablets are also getting updated. Towers are becoming like even more real maps, and since they will like actually have mechanics in them and stuff, there will be less towers on the map to actually set up for endgame mapping purposes, and towers are going to be able to actually hold up to 3 tablets in order to compensate for there being less towers needed to set up, right? Now, worth noting, the tower can only take 3 tablets if you run a map with modifiers on it in order to clear that map and like activate the tower. Just keep that in mind. Also, towers have an amp effect for tablets. And tablets will affect more maps at a baseline that then can be amped up as well. Like basically, it's a really cool system update to make it stronger, more reliable, but also less tedious to interact with. And they also mentioned they're adding some unique tablets as well. So that's actually pretty cool altogether. Lastly, in this section of endgame updates, and this is not even the last actual endgame update, it's just the last one I thought needed to be included in this video, is the Atlas tree update and expansion. There are going to be more nodes on the tree. A couple of them actually looked better from the little bit of hovering that they did do in the stream. And we're going to be getting 10 more Atlas tree points, which those 10 points will come from doing 5 of the quote unique maps they're adding, because those will give 2 each. I believe they're adding 7 maps. And it's funny calling them unique maps because they're not, like, they talked about this in the QA, but like whatever. Unique maps. Now we get to talk about crafting updates. I told you I had a whole section for this because they talked about a couple of things that are going to impact how we craft our gear, right? One, runes. Runes are getting tiers. Lesser, the regular, I guess they didn't really give this one a name, and then the greater runes, which it looks like the greater runes are going to only come from the map, or at least specific ones. They might be getting like the regular graders from regular gameplay. And this was just to accommodate the fact that they got outscaled really hard by like actual modifiers because they only had 1 tier. So having 3 tiers will help solve this problem. It's a shame that we don't have the affinity yet for this or like a tab, but they talked about the fact they want to be able to do an affinity without the tab for this, but they have to figure out how to unpair the affinity technology from the stash tab technology. Once they can unpair that, they will, get that to us. So awesome. Essences. Well, we saw some of those on the tree that looked better for it, but the more important thing was, they had the essence map, right? And we can now vol essences. They showed that in there, where voling essences has some effects akin to they do in PoE 1, like adding essences, chaining essences on there, corrupting greater essences, because corrupted essences have returned, which, just as a PoE 1 player, I hate that they have the same name as the PoE 1 essences because they're going to do completely different things. But, hey, look, is what it is. Which, speaking of different effects, they actually showed one of forcing a successful double corrupt as an option for one of the essences, which is pretty cool. Very interested to see what's going to happen there. Also, they showed an essence dropping a breach, but I wasn't sure how that happened. There's a breach clip where an essence of haste drops in it, and it was not from an essence they opened. So keep an eye out for that. Next up, fracturing orbs. I mentioned these earlier. They come from cleansed maps, and they are akin to the version in PoE 1, where you take an item with 4 or more modifiers and you fracture a modifier on it. If you are not familiar with fractured actually means, fractured means that modifier can never be changed on that item, right? You can do whatever you want to that item, and as long as it is still that item, it will keep that modifier. So, it can be targeted with the remove part of a chaos orb, for example, and it won't remove it, right? You can annul and it will fail to annul that modifier off, right? Like that, it is a modifier that is immutable. You also can't divine it, right? It is perfectly immutable at this point in time when it's fractured, which is very important for being able to actually create insane items. Huge fan of fracturing orbs coming back. And speaking of fracturing orbs coming back, and welcome additions to crafting mechanisms that we have, we also are getting recombinators added, which I don't like them in PoE 1. I don't particularly love it in PoE 2 either, but I think it fits because 3-to-1 ink sucks, especially with the reforging bench, which Ziggy actually asked the okay, we get some better features for the menuing stuff, and they were like, oh, we'll think about it. Surely they'll think about it and actually make something better for these systems. But for now, recombination will do. As it just gives another way to have agency, although I suspect that it will become extremely degenerate, just because we can't alt spam like we do in PoE 1. Instead, you'll just be loading up your stash tabs. So, hope you already own a bunch of quad tabs. Good luck, Chief. It also will cause expedition artifacts, which is a little weird because our expedition artifacts are already kind of suffering in the sense that like the expedition vendors are not the strongest. So we'll see what they do there. They said they're not doing anything about this patch, but looking for the 0.3 to update expedition. Also about recombinators, they mentioned that there's going to be this design change that was not shown in the showcase that I didn't fully understand based on how they explained it because it was not fully set in stone exactly how it's going to work. But they're going to allow us to influence or select the number of modifiers that will actually like be on the combined product at the recombination. Whatever that means, some stuff involving numbers and like weighting chances. we'll see the details of that when it is fully announced and ready to go. One last little segment of things here, and it's the fifth thing, but it's not actually a full segment of changes and whatnot. And it's because I'm talking about balance changes that we don't have yet. We don't have them yet because the patch notes will not be out till next week. But I needed to include this segment anyways, because in the list of things to be excited about, one, balance changes in games like this are always exciting. But two, and more importantly, is because we were told specifically in the stream to prepare to relearn the game and what is good and bad in it. I don't know exactly this extent that means and whatnot, but the general idea just being that we're going to get like an old GGG style patch, it sounds like, where things that are busted are going to get unbusted, things that sucked might unsuck, right? Just all together a massive sweeping balance change for the game. And so be prepared for that. The only thing that I remember them directly confirming is that heralds procking off of each other and like infinitely changing on screen, apparently that's getting touched. But everything else, they have not actually given us any specifics yet. And so it's, we'll figure out when the patch does drop. When the patch notes do drop, I will be live on Twitch more than likely talking about them, so you can get the information there. Because I don't know if I'm going to cover it on the channel, because that might be just too much information for how close to the release that's going to come around, right? Now, all that said, that was a banger of a stream that they gave us. Like, I'm not gonna lie, I was a little conked out when they showed us when it was only the class stuff, but once we got to see that the end game is getting meaningful changes that actually address a lot of my initial concerns with the game, I am very much looking forward to the Dawn of the Hunt update. I hope you are too. If you want to come see what we're doing live, that will be in the description. Be streaming that entire weekend for sure, and then I have a somewhat regular-ish streaming timeline. Who knows? But check that out there. I'll be uploading videos on the channel, which if you want to see more of those, subscribe, notifications on if you want to actually know exactly when we're posting. Otherwise, just like and comment to support the boy. Maybe even like stick me in your algorithm a little bit. All that stuff. Join the Discord to communicate, ask questions, all that good stuff. Thank you guys for watching. If you have any questions or anything that you feel like I missed in this, right? Like I said, I tried to condense down literally 3 hours of stream content into a video that is like almost digestible. So the thing you think I missed, drop that down below. Thank you guys for watching. I'll see you in the next one. Peace.